I'm going to give something that's going to be very controversial right now. It just came to me, right? So it's controversial because it relates to religion, it relates to Gnosticism, it relates to a forbidden gospel, all right? And it relates to because it just came to me right now. So are you familiar with the Gospel of Thomas?
No.
I've heard of it, but no, I'm not.
Okay, the Gospel of Thomas is really amazing gospel that almost made it into the New Testament canon there because it was hugely popular through the first 4 centuries of Christianity, and eventually Nicaea and other councils decided, for some of the reasons which I'll mention, Nicaea decided it's just too out there because it's a very mystical document. It's just a sayings document. There's nothing about Jesus goes and does miracles. It's 114 sayings of Jesus, many of which are in the canonical New Testament. And then there's like a lot. They're like, oh, this is new, right? But they're all sayings. It's a sayings gospel, and they're a lot of them are in John. It's very mystical stuff, right? But it ends with a controversial line, and it's the final line in 114, which is verse 114, which is Peter says, Peter, I think in a lot of the Gospels, certainly a lot of the non-canonical Gospels, Peter comes across as a little bit of a bit of a misogynistic jerk in these Gospels, right? He's like, he doesn't like Mary Magdalene. He's like pissed off that Jesus is very close with Mary, and it's a consistent theme in the Gnostic Gospels. Peter is like the guy who's like a bit, and in the official Gospels, he gets into trouble here and every now and then. He's a little bit of a hothead, a little bit of an impulsive guy. So the last thing Peter says to Jesus, he's like, you're blessing all these women like Mary Magdalene, right? It's but they are unworthy of life. Women are, because the character as portrayed in the gospel is misogynist. Women are unworthy of the afterlife. They're unworthy of life. And Jesus' response is that don't worry. He's referring to Mary Magdalene and his female followers. I will make her from female to male. And that's the last line of the gospel. It's a very interesting final saying.
That's
right?
The last line?
Yeah, I will make her from female to male, right? And so people are like, what does he mean by that? Is Jesus being misogynist, right? And again, it's coming down to, but he's not. Again, whether one accepts that is an accurate stating of Jesus or not is irrelevant. Why was that a popular gospel for 4 centuries, right? It was obviously tapping into something. And this idea was tapping into conversations about the masculine and the feminine, right? And so what I would suggest is an interpretation of that saying is that whole thing where salvation is coming out from hell. It's coming out from the labyrinth. The Christian tradition, Christ descends into hell after the crucifixion and then rises back through the resurrection, right? Okay, that's the Christian faith. And so you have to go into the labyrinth to come out on top, right? And come out into the light. And so what he's doing there is exactly what you're describing, is taking someone who's trapped inside the labyrinth of their own fear, of their own lack of faith, and feeling all the pressure of the world, all the eyes on you, trapping you inside the labyrinth of your soul. And then Jesus is like saying, no, I'm going to flip the energy. I'm going to take Mary Magdalene and I'm going to flip her polarity so that she's no longer trapped inside this hell. She comes out like she's now exploding outwards with this grace, right? That's a way to interpret that. That's not misogynistic, but it's about masculine and feminine energies, which your book is about, right? So do you see how that works? It came to when we talk about is that now that Jesus is saying, I'm going in that Gnostic gospel, I'm going to turn the energy of the labyrinth into the energy of the sun.
Well, I think that's great because the hero's journey is markedly outward. It's an outward journey, so the energy is out. That the masculine symbol is an arrow pointing out, whereas the hero's journey heroine's labyrinth is very inward. So from that perspective, that lines up the idea of switching from male to female. If you're thinking of it like an electric current from a current going this way to one going out that way. That makes sense. And
that's how we think of polarity, right? We think of electricity as masculine and feminine, right? We think of, but that's not a negative or positive, right? It's just polarity.
Right. I totally agree. Yeah. And we were saying,
some people in the chat are not all that happy with my analogies. Again, I knew it was going to be controversial. Take whatever value in what I said and don't be offended. It's just, it's not in the New Testament. Obviously the Christian church decided it wasn't canonical, but take whatever is of value, what I said. If something's not of value to you, then leave it.
Well, you could find value in things that are off the beaten path, so, and like you said, so I write about the Byzantine Empire in the 6th century. And actually, Cameron, when you, Heath, and Brianna, I believe, had the discussion on the Christmas story, you had launched into a comprehensive kind of analysis of the different types of Christianity that were around. And I think what you were doing was kind of setting the stage for how Islam fit into the discussion in the late 6th century, early 7th century, their answer to all these questions that were causing a lot of division in the Byzantine Empire. So, even when I'm writing the story, it's like these people all took this seriously. It's easy to say, oh, what? This is an extinct religion. Well, it wasn't. It was around for 400 years. That's a long time for these things to be around. You might not have heard of it, but, it was there, and had a lot of followers, and they had their stories, and they had, I think this is even more important, their interpretation of the stories, which determined one religion or the other, how you interpret, like the nature of Christ, for example. Your answer to that question meant you were in this camp or that camp,